Big news out of Hollywood, Michael. Big news. Matt Damon has told the Sunday Times that his daughter recently made him stop using the F slur. Which is, I'll just say it in a non-offensive way. You know, faggot. That's what he means. You know, I said, "Come on, that's a joke." I said it in "Stuck on You." I love the logic. I said it in a random movie, so that means I can say it now. She went to her room and wrote a beautiful treatise, I don't know, on how that word is dangerous. I said, "I retire the F slur." I understood. So this is big news, Michael. Matt Damon can no longer just be randomly homophobic.
I mean, I was just going to say that I like, on the one hand, like, I think Matt Damon's being hilarious in just his general attitude and reasoning here. And I guess the fact that he needed to have it explained to him why it's not okay to just casually use homophobic slurs. But I also like the fact that apparently his daughter is such a loser that she writes like like an academic appeal to her dad.
That's all anyone can do now. They just post. It's like, well, I you know, this is what I go on social media and do, so I have to do that in real life.
No, yeah, exactly.
I love the idea of like Matt Damon just casually saying this F slur when, you know, he's like talking to one of his buddies and like the hair and makeup guy is that actually, you know, there's a bit homophobic to assume that the hair and makeup guy would be gay.
Yeah.
Let's say the stuntman. The stuntman would be gay. The stuntman over here saying,
if the stunt is taking a cock up your ass.
Okay, well, you know, wow. Okay, Matt Damon, calm down. And yeah, Matt Damon's just blurting out the this F word slur, and yeah, I guess it's good. It's good that people change, but I just imagine, you know, all the Matt Damon's like Boston buddies, like from back home, calling him Matt Gaiman.
Yes,
because he doesn't say the word faggot anymore. I would love to be. I would love to see that happen. But you know what, Michael? People say Hollywood is woke. Maybe this is a counter against that, because Matt Damon in the year 2021 was still just going around saying it casually.
Yeah, or maybe Hollywood isn't woke at all. It's just they all have really politically active daughters writing Facebook updates. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past, we give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke. And this week we are celebrating the release of The Suicide Squad by looking at the film Suicide Squad. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Suicide Squad?
Yeah, Michael, I love how they've renamed the sequel. It's like, it's not Suicide Squad, it's The Suicide Squad. In fact, they've done the exact same thing with Batman. I believe it's The Batman is the new Batman movie.
I'm looking forward to The Superman.
So anyway, Michael, let's get into Suicide Squad. It is a 2016 American superhero film based on DC Comics' supervillain team of the same name, the third installment in the DC Extended Universe, or the DCEU. It was written and directed by David Ayer. I'm not sure about that, to be honest. I'm not sure you could confidently say that given what went down. It stars Will Smith, Jared Leto, does it? Margot Robbie, Joel Kinnaman, Viola Davis, Jai Courtney, Jay Hernandez, who plays Amanda Waller, Adewale Akinnuyi, Adbaji. I mean, come on, man. Like, I know I don't want to be racist, but like, you got to have an easier name than that. I'm sorry. Just call yourself Adewale AA. No offense, but like, come on. Ike Barinholtz, Scott Eastwood, and of course, Cara Delevingne. Who could forget Cara Delevingne was in this movie? So, Michael, the movie was released on August the 5th, 2016, in the United States of America. So yeah, just over 5 years ago. And can you tell me what the budget was for Suicide Squad? I know I almost said The Suicide Squad there, but no, Suicide Squad. Michael, what was the budget?
Well, I know that this film had a lot of behind-the-scenes tampering, reshoots, things like that. I'm guessing that probably means they sunk quite a bit of money into it. So I'm thinking maybe like as much as 200 million?
Okay, you know what? I honestly thought you were going to go lower.
Yeah.
But you didn't, so you should be proud of yourself. It's 175.
Okay.
175 million, of course, not dollars. So yeah, no, that's it. You know what, Michael? You're a bit off, but you know, you went over some good logic there. What about the box office? How much did this rake in?
That's a good question.
That's why I asked it.
I know that Batman and Superman only like didn't do that well, didn't it? Make like 700 million or something like that. And I assume this film must have surely done worse because it's like if Batman and Superman didn't do well, so maybe this made like 500 million.
Here's the thing: the box office 746.8 million. Yeah, I don't know if it's higher than Batman v Superman. I'd have to check on that, and I will in a sec. But definitely. The box office, of course, was very good considering how bad the film was.
What?
Like that's the thing. People talk about this as a failure. Like this could have killed off the DCEU. You look at that and it's like fucking hell. But that's a decent amount of profit, isn't it? But anyway, Michael, Suicide Squad. Did we like this movie? Did it make you want to commit to watching other movies?
Well, I genuinely think, Luke. I think this film might be the most incompetent film we've reviewed, because we've reviewed bad films, but
no, it's not the most incompetent.
Well, I'm trying to think, because like I mean, so I'm thinking about the films I really dislike, like for example 50 Shades of Grey, but that wasn't incompetent, it was just a horrible premise. I mean, I don't know, like what would you say is an example of like a film which is markedly more incompetent?
Well, I mean, we've reviewed things like, The Last Ounce of Courage.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, even then though, I almost feel like, I mean,
Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas.
I mean, I almost want to be generous or kind of like to substantiate my point a bit by just perhaps arguing that those films like kind of knew what they were doing, and it wasn't like necessarily incompetence. It was just like, considering, I guess also factoring in the budget and things like that. But, okay, maybe I'll concede that. But certainly, I think this film, like the amount of things which were just bad, like the amount of just consistently bad filmmaking, is something which I think is quite a rarity. So with that said, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean I hated this film more than anything, because overall I think there are films which are competently made which I hate more. But I was just like watching this film absolutely shocked by just a number of things where I was like, this is just not good. So yeah, I didn't like it, Luke. What did you think?
Well, I thought it was pretty bad as well. It made me want to commit
No More Life.
Well, I made the joke before saying did it make you want to commit to watching other movies? And you seem to have missed that, I think.
Oh, no, I did react, but the problem is that I was going to laugh and then I accidentally started coughing.
Great, well, thank you. But I think this actually did make me want to commit suicide. No, I mean, it's a joke, of course, because the movie's called Suicide Squad, but I was sitting there like halfway through it. I was like, I fucking despise this. I just hated it. And yeah, you could say it's incompetent. That's true. I'm not sure it's just incompetent. It's just really, really shit. And I mean, there were some people who could say, "Oh, there's a good movie in there somewhere." That there was not so much editing. I don't know, man. I don't see a good movie in here. Like, it's the same thing that happens when you get these studios come in and meddle with a movie like excessively. It's like, oh, and then the director comes out and saying, "Oh, there's a really good movie in there, but the fucking." The fucking studio came in and messed stuff up.
Yeah, release the air cut, I say.
Oh, we'll get onto that later. But yeah, I would not. I get, the Snyder Cut, same thing with that. Like, no, there wasn't a good movie in Batman v Superman. It was fundamentally flawed, and I think the same is for this movie. It is fundamentally flawed, just in a massive way, of course. Like, it's awful, Michael. But we'll get into that. Firstly, nitpicks. How many do you have?
I've got 2.
I've got a lit pick and a nitpick, so you go first.
Sorry, Luke. I don't know. I had 2, but I actually edited it down to 1. And I just so basically, how does Deadshot not just instantly kill all the people coming at them? I have some general issues, and I thought like I could talk about Deadshot a lot, but I think the problem is with Deadshot, once you've established this character as like somebody who's like the best shot ever, I think then you have to say, well, he's going to be really good. And then you see like moments where lots of people are running at them. So like there's a moment, I can't even remember where it is in the film, but lots of people are, it's when they first encounter the kind of massive CGI army. They're all running at them.
Oh yeah,
and you think like
blueberry heads.
Yeah, like Deadshot should just be going like bang, 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 like one shot killing every single one of them. The only issue should be whether or not he can reload, but there's not so many of them that he would be completely overwhelmed. So you're thinking to yourself,
you're saying it goes on for too long. It goes on for like 20 seconds.
Well, what I'm mostly saying is that Deadshot should just they should just be done. Like the way they
that's what I'm saying. It goes on for too long then.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a fair nitpick, I guess. Depends how many there were, but yeah, I mean, he's just mowing them down. That's the thing. They have guns and then they don't have guns. At the start, they have guns and then they just charge at them. So yeah, great stuff there. Okay, my nitpick is the security for the prison where these guys are based. Like, it's a maximum security prison in Louisiana, is just awful. Like, truly, like the most fucking maximum security prison you could ever want. To put all these bad guys with superpowers, and a few guys with guns break into the compound, and they and of course, led by Joker, they break in twice. And in the second time, Joker has a fucking his suit has the word Joker on it. So how are you falling for that? Basically, people, I don't know. It just seems like the security is properly shit. But yeah, anyway, that's my nitpick, and also my lit pick is the triangle offense, which is, I don't know how this became a thing that Will Smith says. I don't even remember, Michael. Will Smith talks about the triangle offense. This is going to be a basketball
thing, isn't it?
Yes, and Phil Jackson. And this was around the time Phil Jackson was a basketball coach who had a lot of success, and I like that, but also I like that because this was around the time he was absolutely ruining the New York Knicks around 2016, and Knicks fans were not happy with him. So yeah, now he's not in basketball anymore, which is a shame. But yeah, that was fun. So yeah, that's all. Let's get into the concept for this movie, Michael, because of course this was unusual, since you get all these supervillains in a movie, and that has never been done before. They're the main characters. You could say, like, okay, supervillains have been in movies before, a bunch of them, and Spider-Man 3, for instance, notably making the movie worse. But this was, when they were the first movie where they were the protagonists, and it was around this time that superhero movies were getting more experimental. We talked about it before when reviewing Deadpool, which was released in the same year, and it was a case of, we can get out of the box a bit. So yeah, this is the first ever comic book movie where the villains are the main characters and a whole group of them together. So yeah, I think it is an interesting concept considering what has gone before. Would you say, Michael?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think when I heard about it, I mean, I will actually confess that I was assuming this film, mostly because I was thinking that Zack Snyder's films were bad. I was thinking, this film, it's not directed by Zack Snyder. It's an interesting concept. This film could be the one, good film in the DC Expanded Universe. That was my naive thought when I first kind of heard about this film. And I think, it does come from the fact that you do assume, based on... And I think, obviously, this film came out after Deadpool. And I know Deadpool was, not a villain, technically. But I guess it kind of had, this idea of a anti-hero in a film that sort of had a sense of humor about itself. And you imagine, maybe this film could do a similar thing. I mean, obviously not the R-rated stuff, but, you have these anti-heroes, basically, who would be, not fulfilling that traditional role, but still the, basic protagonists of the film. And also, of course, you got the impression from the trailers and stuff, this film wouldn't take itself too seriously. And I was like, I could be on board with this. So in principle, from just the concept alone, I was like, this seems like a fun idea.
Yeah, I think people agree with you, Michael, because people were hyped. You just need to look at the box office gross. If COVID didn't exist, I expect the new Suicide Squad to gross less, but if COVID didn't exist, I would be surprised if the new Suicide Squad exceeded the 750 million that the original grossed, because just the concept I think was good, but that doesn't mean it was executed correctly, was it, Michael? Yes, as you said, incompetence was definitely quite rife with this movie. So, the plot for Suicide Squad. A secret government agency led by Amanda Waller recruits imprisoned supervillains to execute dangerous Black Ops missions and save the world from a powerful threat in exchange for reduced sentences. So yeah, that is the plot. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a decent reason why you could try and get all of these people together for this movie, to help US national security, because they're special individuals who can do special things. Although you still have the Justice League there, of course, even though Superman's not there. But I get the idea. What if the next Superman is evil? Well, Harley Quinn will stop him.
Yes, exactly. That's
that's the thing. We'll talk about the villain, but I think the actual plot of let's get these villains together, because they could help US national security in some way. Again, the villain that they take on, they could not beat Superman, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get the idea, round them up, get them to go rescue something. But yeah, the problem is that what actually happens in this movie is they're rescuing Amanda Waller, which is played as a twist, and it raises a lot of questions, which we'll get into. And then they have to go and rescue her again, and also defeat the bad guy, or should I say gal, Michael? I should say gal. Yeah, it's just like the actual plot. It's okay. Yeah, it makes sense why these people are together, but once the plot actually gets going, it's just the most basic, lazy idea. Like no effort put in at all.
No,
and
yeah.
the character development is not there alongside it, so that makes it just inherently uninteresting.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I mean, yeah, suffice it to say, the main problem with this film is not in the concept. Although I do think it would have maybe made a bit more sense if, like, this wasn't being pitched as, like, a regular thing. Because basically, you know, Amanda Waller, her argument is, like, oh, these people should be, like, a regular part, like a regular extension of the United States military, essentially. Or obviously, well, not officially, but unofficially. And I was kind of thinking to myself, it would make more sense to me and like suspend my disbelief a bit better if this was like for a specific thing. So it's like, because of this specific problem, we're going to send these villains in as a suicide mission because we don't, you know, because the logic, I guess, of them being called the Suicide Squad is basically you don't want innocent people or kind of, you know, let's say good guys in quotes to die going into a suicide mission. So instead you'd be like, oh, let's have villains who we don't care if they die go into these suicide missions. And that's, you know,
this
that
is
makes
something
sense.
that isn't. So you're saying this should be something that isn't that like comic. It's just like a one-off thing.
Yeah, basically, yeah, that's my thought. So it should be like, we've got this mission,
guy,
let's send in these
it's
guys.
basically, to defeat this bad guy, this hypothetical bad guy. It's, you know, it's not a god that can destroy the world. It's somebody that, you know, is a bit more low-key, and it's a one-off thing, and basically for some reason that they can make up, I don't know, maybe the room is poison or something, like Batman doesn't want to do it, like the Flash doesn't want to do it, it's like, nah, I'll probably die, fuck that. So they send in the Suicide Squad instead, and that would make more sense, I guess.
Also, actually, just as a very minor point, it is kind of logically contradictory to have a group called the Suicide Squad and then intend on using them on multiple missions, because the implication of the Suicide Squad would surely be that you're expecting them to die.
Well, to be fair, Amanda Waller doesn't call them that.
Oh yeah, sorry. Will Smith does.
Infamously, Will Smith goes, so what are we, some kind of Suicide Squad? As he looks around the corner of the camera looks at the name of the movie as he says that. But yeah, so yeah, that's the plot. Yeah, but basically it doesn't really make that much sense in terms of the villain that they're going after. And also, it's a very simple one-track thing. Like, okay, we gotta go to this point. Okay, we did it. Okay, now we gotta go to the next point. Okay, we did it. And there we go. Yeah, just very, very lazily done, IMO. And yeah, no like great characters or character development alongside it. Yeah, it can get pretty shit.
But what about the fantastic plot, Luke?
Yes, the fantastic plot. But I just want to say, actually, before we actually delve into it, Joker, of course, is meant to be in this movie. One of the most iconic villains ever. Except, as many people point out, he never actually gets involved in the plot. The movie could happen without him. He's just there. You know, it's funny, we talked about this kind of with Indiana Jones last week in Raiders. Like, he, you know, of course, he's heavily involved more so than the Joker. I mean, he's the protagonist, but everything would happen without Indiana Jones. Everything would happen without Joker. So, yeah, I don't think I'd compare the Suicide Squad to Raiders of the Lost Ark, but I am. So,
yeah.
What does that say, Michael? What does that say?
I mean, well, it's kind of a compliment to Suicide Squad, actually. So, I guess it's a good thing. It must mean you like the film.
You could argue it's kind of a negative against Raiders as well. I'd go down that path more. Yeah, slighting that. But anyway, so let's get into the actual detail of what goes on in this plot of Suicide Squad. First up, Michael, the introduction to the characters. This is, I think, probably one of the worst starts to a movie I have ever seen. It is so... The word I'd use to describe is jarring. Will Smith is introduced, and then immediately we cut to Harley Quinn. And, so a bit of music was playing for Will Smith, a bit of pop music, which is, you know, you heavily recognised your brain instantly. I can't remember what specific one it was because there were so fucking many of them. But, you know, instantly your brain is like, oh, I recognise that song. And then we cut to Harley Quinn, and it's a different song. Then you have Amanda Waller who gets introduced. And again, we have a new piece of music playing for Amanda Waller. Then Amanda Waller, you know, she goes to this dinner and she starts introducing the characters all over again. And more new music starts playing. And then we get a cutscene for Deadshot. And then for Harley Quinn. And we get several cutscenes of her involving Batman as well. We get the Boomerang guy, followed by El Diablo. And then Crocodile guy. All different music as well. There's very important to point out. So yeah, and it's like I said, it's incredibly jarring. And then finally we get to the witch who inhabits Cara Delevingne's body after she fell down a hole and decided as an archaeologist to open up this totem thing immediately, because that's what archaeologists do, right?
Yeah, it belongs in a museum.
You would think it was the actual Cara Delevingne who got lost in the Peruvian jungle who did that shit. Not somebody who was apparently a doctor. Yeah, but she unleashes this enchantress. What a great move that was. But yeah, all these intros, all these new songs, it's just also annoying. It's just so pathetic. Like, we keep cutting back to Amanda Waller eating beef and explaining stuff, while the two generals at her table just say generic lines like, well, how do you do that? What makes you think this can work? It's just so lazy and uninspiring. And of course they put the text about the characters on the screen like it's like a video game, and these are like their traits. Well, it's like it's a PowerPoint basically, Michael. When you're scrolling through a PowerPoint, it's like, oh, Deadshot, these are his things you need to know about him. And it happens like again and again and again. It's just so completely unengaging and boring. So yeah, that's my little rant on that. One of the worst starts to a movie I think I can remember. What do you think?
No, yeah, I mean, I basically, I think you were quite comprehensive in what you're putting out. But yeah, I think especially the way, like, you do get the repetition. It's kind of like, I guess it's almost like inconsistency and repetition, the way it's sort of like, if you're going to introduce the characters, you would think you would introduce them in a kind of similar ways and like in one kind of sort of coherent block. And obviously instead, as you pointed out, you just get kind of slightly just random introductions to every character. Like, some of them are introduced in this way, then others of them are introduced in like these other ways, like obviously, so Will Smith and Harley Quinn get introduced right away, but then for some reason lots of other characters only get introduced later on by Amanda Waller. And then obviously there's the repetition aspect, so it's like, why would you bother like introducing these characters twice? So all of that structure is just completely broken, it feels. And then obviously on top of that, you just have the stylistic choices, which are, yes, god awful.
Yes,
it's just so poorly done. And I think, like,
it is, yes.
I mean, you just think about like any other like ensemble film. They exist, like the Ocean's films, and it's like they work, and like, it's not that difficult. Like, this it's not like the newest idea in the world to have an ensemble film, and yet apparently they were like, well, how do we do this? I guess the only option is to introduce lots of people twice, some people not at all, everybody inconsistently, and also accompany it with the most jarring, horrible, creative decisions we can. Good
yeah,
move.
and that's the thing. The jarring, horrible, creative decisions, as you put it. Yeah, it's like a pop music song, and then immediately we cut to another pop music song, and it's just, again, just so annoying. I can't believe that this was done, and we'll get into the reason why it's done in a bit. But yeah, I just remember it being also thinking about how. It's like the start of an NFL game, like Sunday Night Football, and they introduce like the players, and they have like a player say, like, for example, Tom Brady, Michigan, that's the university he went to, and it lists a bunch of stats about him. Then it goes to the next player. It's like Dak Prescott. I don't know what fucking college he went to, like Dak Prescott, University of Louisiana. Who the fuck knows? And then some stats about him, and it's like, that's what triggered in my mind. It's like, oh, this is what this is. And it's just the worst way for a movie to do it. Yeah, it is like you're watching like a fucking NFL game or playing a video game. Just jam this exposition in, and this it can work if it's in like, or these quick bursts can work if it's like spaced out. Like, there's a 10-minute gap between each, and you give it time to breathe. But when it happens like again and again, like one after the other, like, that's when it becomes very annoying. If there was one scene with Deadshot, if he was introduced properly for like 8 minutes, say, 8 to 10 minutes. Maybe a bit longer, because he's one of the main villains, and they have that title card, and then you have his music, and then you get a normal scene with him. Okay, and then we go onto Harley Quinn. The same thing happens with Harley Quinn. Okay, that could work some more, but yeah, it's just structured so awfully. And here's the crazy thing, Michael. It's not just completely badly done, this introduction. It's also an incredibly long introduction as well.
Yes,
and it goes on for 35 minutes. If it happened for like 10 minutes. Then it'd be okay. This is annoying, but it's not too bad. But it goes on for so long. Like I say, 35 minutes, because that's when the plot properly gets going. When the fucking enchantress causes that that mayhem in, what's it called, Midway City?
Yeah,
That's what it's called. So yeah, 35 minutes. This is a 2-hour movie, so 29% is dedicated to these shitty introductions. Yeah, just done in an awful way. And the reason why I think this was done like this is This is from Wikipedia. The final cut was taken away from David Ayer and instead handed to a trailer production company. So all this chopping and changing therefore makes sense.
Yeah.
Because this is what these guys would be good at. What a crazy decision to hand, if you're Warner Brothers, to hand this movie over to a trailer production company.
Yeah.
Guess what? Movies, full-length movies, aren't trailers. Just a bizarre decision overall. Yeah. And does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think what I heard is that the reason why is because the trailer for Suicide Squad was very well received. Like, and I mean, we kind of already touched on it, like the hype. The trailers for Suicide Squad were genuinely good, and you know that company which edited the trailers, they were very good at their job of editing trailers. But obviously, there is a massive difference between the skills necessary to edit a trailer and the skills necessary to edit a full-length movie.
That is such galaxy brain thinking. It's like, you know what? The trailer was good. So let's just make the movie the trailer.
That's so funny.
2-hour trailer. Boom, done. And this is the thing, it's not just like there are some David Ayer bits in there and you can notice them, which we'll get into as we review this movie. But yeah, it's just a crazy decision why they did that. And yeah, no wonder it's shit, because trailers aren't the same as movies. What it's incredible to have to say this, but what could work for like a 2-minute trailer with a lot of cuts and a lot of exciting scenes and maybe, you know, some different pop music thrown in there, doesn't necessarily work. And I can say, actually, not necessarily, absolutely does not work if you are doing this in a movie and you need to fill out like 30 to 35 minutes. So yeah, bad intro, Michael. Again, one of the worst intros I've ever seen in any movie ever. But of course, we're just getting started, like the movie. So also, actually, I was just going to mention this with the intros, because there's a couple more intros that actually happen after the plot gets going. There's the intro of Slipknot. Remember him, Michael?
The man who can climb anything.
The man who can climb anything. He climbs to his death. That's what he can climb to. Hopefully he can climb to heaven, Michael, because he's dead. There we go. That's the better pun. The thing is, like, he's introduced, he's part of this team, but he doesn't get like a title card. You know, he doesn't get like a cool introduction with pop music playing. He just punches a female officer, and then he dies immediately. And it's a trick. Well, it's not a trick. It's like, if you're watching this and you're like, okay, well, clearly this character, if he doesn't get an introduction, he's part of this team, he's going to be fodder, he's going to die, we shouldn't care. And literally immediately after they start the mission, the fucking boomerang guy, Jai Courtney, convinces him to kill himself, and he dies. And it's just like, well, you could see that coming from a fucking mile off, but why should we care? It's just the most pathetically done thing ever. And then, of course, there's the introduction of another character, Katana, who is with the rest of them as much as any of the other characters. You know, she's with the Suicide Squad group, but she doesn't get a cool intro. Again. Yeah. So yeah, like she does barely feature in the rest of the movie, but she features just as much as the fucking, again, boomerang guy. I'm sorry to keep bringing him up, but yeah, like so she doesn't get a cool intro either. So yeah, I don't know why, if the movie, why was Slipknot in this movie? Why was fucking Katana in this movie?
Yeah. Also, Katana isn't a criminal, which they never explain, or at least, well, it's implied she's not a criminal because.
No, yeah, she isn't. She has Flag's back. You know, the army guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's the thing. It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, why she was in this movie, and okay, if she's going to be in this movie, then why don't we give her a good intro like the rest? Yeah, and Slipknot as well. Just, what the fuck's the point in having him in the movie if you're just going to kill him like 2 minutes after he enters? What's the point? So anyway, let's continue with the plot now. So Amanda Waller convinces these national security people to authorize Task Force X. She sees the Enchantress, recover weapons from Iran. And I don't know, it seems quite weird that these national security people give this the go-ahead. You know, one meeting that lasts 5 minutes, and then everyone is on board with this plan. You know, surely, like, the president would have to know as well. Like, we're putting these meta-humans, I mean, some of them aren't even meta-humans, but, you know, to work for us. We have no idea what we're getting into, but I guess that general was just so desperate to see what incredible weapons Iran were producing that he just agreed to it. But yeah, it just feels like it's so, like, for something that is quite outlandish, as the generals point out, just immediately it's given the green light after 5 minutes. And again, when something like that happens in a movie, you just feel like, oh, this isn't properly planned out, is it? This is just a bit haphazard and shit. And, well, let's just get him on the movie. Let's not pay any attention to anything, I guess. But yeah, what do you think of that, Michael?
No, yeah, I do think it was just completely nonsense the way it was set up. I mean, it falls under kind of the same thing you already said about how it becomes much harder to believe that these people would actually buy into the idea that this should be a proper kind of like long-term plan that they buy into. And it would make more sense. Like I said, that's why I think it would make more sense. Just like, okay, we've got this very particular situation, and just as a one-off thing, let's have these Suicide Squad people go into it. And in that context, you can maybe be like, well, they are not going to have to think about it too much because it's just a one-off thing. So it's like, well, if it fails, it fails. But obviously, if they're like, yeah, we're going to have the Suicide Squad, they're going to be a permanent fixture, then you're like, yeah, how on earth are they like not thinking this through like a bit more, and just being like, oh well, obviously if they got us this, then got us this details about Iran, then that must mean that it's a great plan. And you just think, no, I mean, obviously, I think
that's what you do think, right? Just no.
Yeah, I think no.
Yeah, good. But yeah, so okay, so I put here in my notes. This is when the movie starts getting ridiculous. I don't know, kind of already did before then, but yeah, we have this enchantress bring back her brother from the dead. I don't know how Amanda Waller just kept this totem in her room when it was incredibly powerful. Apparently, she just kept it in there. She knew that this fucking enchantress person could. That should have been a nitpick, actually. She knew this enchantress person could like go everywhere because she did it to get the Iran weapons shit. So yeah, apparently she just keeps this totem thing in her room. And then we get onto the big problem of this movie. Okay, I guess the big problem with the plot is that Amanda Waller, of course, she wanted these metahumans to create this task force, Task Force X, to bring down these new threats. That's what the Suicide Squad is. Even though the only reason this new threat, or at least this threat in the movie, exists is because of Amanda Waller creating this task force and, excavating the temple in Peru and not looking, up this enchantress. And the heart thing, of course, doesn't even work because she can use her brother's powers. So, yeah, basically, the reason why the whole movie happens and the Suicide Squad have to save the day is because Amanda Waller wanted to create the Suicide Squad. And that would be fine, I guess, as a plot, if it was acknowledged. It's like, it's a bad idea to put these guys together, if that was the overall, message, and Amanda Waller had to eat crow. But that is never acknowledged. Yeah, that's the thing. It'd be great if the movie acknowledged that this was the problem with the plot, but it just never goes said at all.
Yeah, I think basically there's like two things you'd want to do in a film. You'd want to establish the kind of protagonist, which in this case is the Suicide Squad, and you'd want to establish the plot. And in some sense, this film doesn't really establish the plot because the plot is just the creation of the Suicide Squad itself, as you already said. So it kind of just means that you're watching the film, you're like, well, I don't really care about the plot because you haven't really made a plot. It's sort of just like if you watch the Batman film and it's like they set up Batman being established and they're just like, yep, he's Batman, there it is. And you're like, well, I don't really care about what's actually going on because you haven't really added anything interesting in terms of like, a meaningful threat. And obviously in this case, yeah, if the threat is just what, the Suicide Squad itself, it doesn't really work.
I mean, yeah, you're right, it doesn't work unless, like I said, unless it was acknowledged.
Yeah.
Unless, like I said, Amanda Waller had to eat some humble pie. She was like, oh yeah, Amanda Waller fucked up, but because apparently her character is incredibly manipulative and all-knowing, she's like a god. Well, Amanda Waller can't be embarrassed, even though, it was her fucking attempt that nearly fucking caused the end of the fucking world. But no, like, we can't have a comeuppance for her because that's not what we want to do with her character, even though we've written this movie where she actually is a dumb bitch. But yeah.
No, yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's true.
It's kind of like, it's one of those, it's one of the many problems. Like, I hate to say it, but sometimes you wonder if studio executives are actually that smart, because it seems like a lot of the time when characters who are written, who are supposed to be super smart, super geniuses, it's just like actually the writing of the film is just designed to make you try and make it so you just ignore all the areas where it's obvious that they're actually anything but intelligent.
Absolutely. It's really bad. Yeah, Amanda Waller, this fucking menacing, like all powerful, very, very, a character you don't want to get on the wrong side with. Oh, she nearly just destroyed the world with her own stupid fucking idea. Anyway, so this demigod, the brother of the Enchantress, I think he's called Incubus or something, Incubator
yes.
Man. He's on the loose in Midway City, and of course, instead of calling one of the Justice League, the security people decide to call Task Force X. Again, just created a couple of days ago. It doesn't even really exist properly because all of them are still in fucking prison. Like, that's the thing. I was watching this and I was expecting, of course, a threat, and them to go to the threat, but they're not. They're still in the fucking chains in prison. Like, do any of them know that's their status? Like, they're not together. It's not like they're a team. It's just so fucking stupid. But anyway, Michael, I want to talk about the dialogue now. because there are some great lines
Yes.
in this movie. I hope you agree, because this is, of course, when Will Smith, when the Suicide Squad are gearing up to go to Midway City to take down the villain, or it's firstly rescue this target, which of course turns out to be Amanda Waller. But of course, Will Smith first has to utter the line, "So what are we? Some kind of Suicide Squad?" Just okay. I get you have to maybe say Suicide Squad, but it's just it's so jarring. Like, you just fucking crank it in there. Let's not think about how we could put this in a way that makes sense. As Will Smith just blurt it out with no thought. Incredible. Yeah, I love that line.
Yeah. I mean, well, it became kind of memed, and I think it's it is interesting because obviously there's moments in films. I mean, we mentioned before, I Must Become Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. This idea of characters saying the name of the film they're in, but it just comes across as so. I think it's also it's the beat as well. It's the what are we? Some kind of Suicide Squad, and it's just it's almost as if they think it's a clever line. Because it's almost there's that little kind of moment to just adjust you to it, and it's there it is, he's done the line.
They can't think it's clever. They
can't.
Know,
yeah.
They have to be well, we got to jam this in. But yeah, we have to have Will Smith emphasize it because that's the name of the movie. Yeah. We can't just have a line that people forget. So it's what are we, some kind of Suicide
It literally feels
Squad?
he should look into camera. What are we, some kind of look into the camera?
Exactly.
Suicide Squad.
It feels like he breaks the fourth wall just because of how unnatural it is. So that's a great bit of dialogue. And then we have the next bit of amazing dialogue, which is, "This is Katana. She's got my back. I would advise not getting killed by her. Her sword traps the souls of its victims." Wonderful. Inspired. Yes. Anything to say?
I guess it's, what's the word? Utilitarian. It's literally just here's Katana. It's my job to introduce her. She's a really good fighter. And also, here's a little bit of lore about her sword. And it's just there we go. Okay, thank you, Rick Flag.
But that's the thing. They sacrifice the title card, that they do for the others. And, okay, we're not going to do that for Katana. We're just going to have, Flag introduce her. And it's not better. If you do it like that, it's not better. And again, the real issue I had with those title cards is, they were coming, one after the other. You had a big gap. So again, it would make sense if you did it for this one, because you had a massive gap.
Here's an alternative. What if instead of the title cards, they had Rick Flag introduce every single member in the exact same way? He goes, "This is Captain Boomerang. He's not got my back. He uses boomerangs to kill people, and he's from Australia.
This is Deadshot. He's black. He wants to see his daughter. Yeah, he can shoot people.
That should really just be the whole film, actually. It should be I just wanted to let you know, the Suicide Squad defeated Enchantress. They cut out her heart.
No, but the thing,
and they ended this.
No, but the thing is, he does something
similar to it.
Actually, you joke about it, but he does something similar at the end when he goes, "Oh, what does he do?" He has this great line.
Well, maybe I'm not thinking about it. I'm thinking of the line where he says, "Her heart's out. We can end this."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're watching the movie and you clearly see Harley Quinn take Enchantress's heart out, and then he just turns to Will Smith and goes, "Her heart is out. We can end this." Again, in case the audience was somehow unaware, because they've been going out on about the heart the whole fucking movie. The heart is very important. Exposition, and of course. And you know what? He is an NPC character from a video game.
It's
you go up to one of them and they tell you a bit of dialogue, and that's just useful for the character playing the video game, and then you walk away. And he is like that constantly, and it's really awful way to write a character.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember I watched a video recently. It was just a guy reviewing something, and he had the line. He said, obviously ironically, he said, "Well written characters. They sure do acknowledge the situation they're in." And now, I watch certain films and certain TV shows, and I'll just think about that, it's because it was, the thing that it was reviewing the recent season of Doctor Who, because I'm a nerd, and I thought it would be an interesting thing to watch. But basically, the joke is that every single line of dialogue is just, "What are we doing on this planet?" And then they just explain what it is, and it's well written characters. They sure do acknowledge the situation they're in.
Yeah, maybe to be fair, they need to explain things more because it's meant for kids.
Yeah. I mean, because Doctor Who is a children's
not
show.
26-year-old.
To be fair, I think I'm in a slightly different category of weirdo in that I don't actually watch Doctor Who, but I did watch a review of the recent season of Doctor Who.
That's just very fucking weird.
Yeah, so it's more but to be fair, the important thing is I don't actually watch Doctor Who, so I'm allowed to agree with you that it's for children. But I also Yeah, you are right.
Yeah, but this you could say, well, this movie is for children as well. I mean, it's for like very specifically for all ages. You know, it's not like I feel like you could argue Doctor Who's for all ages, but it's mainly for kids. I feel like that's the case.
Yeah.
But anyway, so let's get on to the bad guys in this movie, Michael. We're going to save our conversation about the villain, the Enchantress, to the end, as of course she really. We get to see what she can do at the end of the movie. But firstly, you have these, I think I call them like blueberry things, but they're like caviar, like faceless villains. And again, just these things that can be bashed with a baseball bat, and that they have guns at the beginning, and then of course they don't, like I said before. It's just completely easy fodder for the characters to kill, just this disposable CGI army. And I do have to ask, if these guys could take over, like if they could defeat the US Army and take over the city, how the fuck is Harley Quinn just beating them up with a baseball bat? What is going on here, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you'd think like they're eminently defeatable, because literally, like, I don't think they don't even have like the ability to use weapons, do they? The projectile weapons. They're literally just effectively kind of zombies. In fact, they basically are zombies, because there's a whole thing about how they're actually people who have been turned into these monsters, which is, kind of interesting. But you almost think at that point, it would be more interesting if they actually were just straight up zombies. That would be cool. But instead they're kind of just like weird blueberry monsters, like you said.
This is the thing. Oh, look, DC fans are like, nah, these movies are better than Marvel, and they just copy the exact same Marvel shit. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if any DC fans actually, there were some who were saying this movie was as good as Marvel's, which we'll get onto in a bit. But, so Michael, I've got some questions about Amanda Waller here. This is the next topic I want to talk about, because, the Suicide Squad, they're scaling a skyscraper, and the team discovers Waller is their mark, i.e. the person they were trying to excavate. She had the codename like HVT-01 or something.
Yeah, which I think, I would assume that stands for High Value Target.
Yes, I would assume that as well. And Will Smith is like, you got these guys thinking it's fucking Nelson Mandela out in there. And that is interesting, because the thing is, I don't know why they would care at all who they're rescuing, but anyway. So the whole problem is, Michael, this whole fucking twist, I guess, Amanda Waller is the person they're actually trying to rescue. It makes no fucking sense. And the reason why is because, the reason why it doesn't make any sense is because why is she in there in the first place in Midway City, trying to cover up, her involvement in Enchantress's revolt, as it were? Like, why was she there? She didn't have to put herself in that position. She could have got other people to cover it up for her and orchestrate things from a different place. Like, there's no reason she had to specifically be there. And also, then, what was the point of the whole Suicide Squad then, if this was their mission? Just to try and rescue her? Weren't they initially formed to defeat the bad guys? Defeat like metahumans? That was why they were formed. And now their mission for this, movie is, because of course it changes after, Amanda Waller gets shot down in a helicopter, but their mission appears to be in this movie to rescue Amanda Waller. So that doesn't make sense. And also, I can't imagine it was that hard for Waller to escape that situation, unless all the bad guys had, purposely surrounded the building she was in. But why would they do that? Like, I don't know. This is what I was thinking, because I was just trying to make sense of all this. Maybe it was the case that, Amanda Waller wanted to prove that this Suicide Squad could work together. So she made herself the target, and she was like, okay, come and get me. But of course, that is never said. That is never even implied. So it's just, you throw your hands up. It's like, there are so many questions to come out of this. It just does not make sense at all. Anything else to add on that?
No, basically, I mean, I agree with you that it seems like, did they really need the Suicide Squad just to rescue Amanda Waller? It seems like they could have just had like a helicopter land on the roof and pick up Amanda Waller. Like the whole idea of it just makes no sense on any level, because I think you pretty much covered everything.
Again, initially they weren't even meant to do rescue missions, were they? They were meant to, because that's why I realised, like, when they were getting their mark, they were talking about it, I was like, wait, so they're rescuing somebody? I was expecting them to go towards the big fucking blue sky beam and, battle Cara Delevingne. Like, that's what I was expecting them to do, because that's what the whole setup of the movie was. This is what they were doing. They were doing a suicide mission, basically battling these metahumans, but they just don't, they just don't decide to do that. So, or the movie doesn't decide to go in that direction. And you know why? Michael, why the movie decides to have this thing where they have to rescue Amanda Waller first?
No, tell me.
Well, it's because they realise that, like I said, the squad is created to try and get Enchantress, but that wasn't enough in terms of the movie length. Because you think about it, if they just go and get Enchantress, this movie is 1 hour, 30 minutes long. And that's not long enough. And also, considering you're introducing people for like the first 30 minutes, that really isn't long enough at all. So clearly they had to add, they realised, I think David Ayer probably came up with this because, he was writing them. This is why I say, well, I don't think this movie could have been saved really with if it was just David Ayer, because this had to come from him. He probably, and some writers that he was working on it, realised, well, it doesn't really work if the Suicide Squad just go after Cara Delevingne, because then the movie isn't long enough, so they have to add this thing where they go after Waller first, and then afterwards they go after the Enchantress. They had one idea for this movie, one idea for the Suicide Squad to do: complete a mission and kill bad guys by walking through a city. First it was to rescue Amanda Waller, then it was to kill the Enchantress.
Yeah, I think like this film to me feels very, almost in a weird way, cheap and restrictive, where it almost seems like it's a very kind of small world where it's like you've got basically, you almost feel like it's a prison, and then there's this skyrise place and there's like a street. It kind of like, it doesn't really feel like it goes very far, and you kind of compare it to a lot of other superhero films, especially, I mean, you look at in the kind of footsteps of Marvel, films which do feel quite expansive, like it goes all over the place. And like Iron Man had people going off to literally the Middle East to do fighting, like basically a plot that existed half in LA and half in Afghanistan or whatever. I think it was like some random made up Marvel country. But you think to yourself, why didn't they have like they set up this Iran thing? You think like they should have had the Suicide Squad do something more interesting. And yeah, I agree with you that it's kind of like they had to add this not very interesting Amanda Waller thing just so that they could add something on top of the not very interesting Enchantress thing. And it's like, why didn't they just come up with something interesting? Like, you have this idea of like the Suicide Squad, they've got to go on a suicide mission. You think like you could come up with all sorts of stuff. You could come up with some kind of, there's this base which is like run by terrorists or something, and it's like really elaborate, and like maybe they're using some kind of magical power or something. They've got to kind of go over to, let's not say the Middle East, it's stereotypical. Maybe the terrorists are in some made up country so as not to offend anyone, and they got to go over to that area, and they like have this like scheme where they've got to, first of all, maybe they've got to do an espionage mission to steal something. Like, there's so much you could have done, but instead I guess they were like, let's just do the most limited thing we can possibly do. Oh wait, that's not enough. Let's add a tiny little extra limited thing as well. Brilliant.
Yeah, and this limited thing is like an exact copy. It's like, we're gonna rescue Amanda Waller, defeat some bad guys. Okay, now we're gonna take down Cara Delevingne. And that's why you have to set up a contrived reason for Amanda Waller to be there. She's fixing her mess. Even then, it doesn't make sense why she's there. So and the reason I think why it's so like slapdash and not well thought out is because apparently David Ayer only had 6 weeks to write the script. Believe it or not. And of course, a bunch of this would have been cut out. So I think basically he was just in a position where he just couldn't get much done. Also, I just want to point out, they do this weird thing in this movie where, if you remember this, Michael, it's a flashback, and of course flashbacks are used pretty much throughout the movie, but it's a really weird flashback where they explain how Enchantress got away from Flag, and like I said, they do it with this flashback, and you can work it out anyway, but it is just haphazardly thrown in there like it's a twist, when basically, because Flag's explaining to Deadshot what happened with Enchantress, and then it's like, Enchantress basically got away. She didn't do what we said she was going to do. And then if you remember what happens, in real time, in the actual movie, like this is again like 40 minutes in, is Amanda Waller is telling Flag stuff, and then Flag is saying, okay, you need to become Enchantress, and then Enchantress betrays Flag. But we don't actually see that happening. And instead we cut to Amanda Waller being told by Flag, she's bolted. Yeah. She's bolted. And I was very confused when they did this. I was like, why the fuck did they do this? But again, I worked it out. And then, again, it's just so stupid because later on in the movie, they include what actually happened in that scene. It would have made a lot more sense to include that scene earlier on in the movie. But they didn't. And, it's like, we can repackage it as a twist now. but it wasn't even a twist. It just makes sense on no level. Why was it a twist? Why wasn't it initially in that scene, which happened, like an hour earlier? Surely that would make more sense. I just, again, just baffling writing, Michael. I don't know if that was David S. I have no idea. It just makes fucking no sense.
I mean, it's just like the decision to, I don't know, again, it almost feels like another example of why this film feels very limited, because it feels like the actual main plot of this film happens over like the course of like 2 days, so everything else has to be explained through flashbacks. So it almost, again, feels like because they wanted this film to be like this tiny story within a short amount of time in a small amount of space, everything outside of that needs to become flashbacks, and obviously then the incorporation of those flashbacks isn't very easy to do because, the film's not presented in like a nice enough way where you can kind of like easily work out what's going on and interpret things. It's bizarre.
Yeah. It is just bizarre. I don't know why they did specifically that. Like other flashbacks, okay, it makes sense, but that specific, again, you'd have to watch the movie. I just don't understand, man. Why would you make it like a twist, a flashback twist, and instead just not include it in the movie? Because it confuses the audience, first off, and it just makes it's just utterly pointless. One of the worst decisions I've ever seen in a movie, like you said, Michael, at the beginning, incredible incompetence. So now let's talk about their motivation, Michael, for the Suicide Squad's motivation for the ending, because of course they go on, they beat Cara Delevingne. They have this bar scene where, they all drown their sorrows, and what convinces Deadshot to get motivated to help Flag makes sense. He wants to prove to his daughter he isn't a piece of shit, basically. And so that's good. I like that, that I approve. Harley Quinn, it makes sense because she has an affinity with Deadshot, even though I don't really know why. That's not really explained why, but they have a good relationship, kind of. So okay, she wants to stick with him. Now that the Joker's died, it makes sense really for her to do something like that. Although I do have a couple of questions. Why would the Croc guy do it? Why would Diablo do it? Why would fucking what's he called, the Boomerang guy? What's his actual name?
Sorry, Captain. It's just called Captain Boomerang.
Captain Boomerang. Wow, what an inspiring name. Yeah, why would Captain Boomerang do this? Like, the thing is, Flag puts down like the thing that could kill them all, and then he just runs out the bar. It's like, well, I'm out of here, and then he comes back. Why? It's just so stupid. Like, why would these villains become good guys? They are coerced, of course, initially, but only one of them, Deadshot, has any reason, to actually become a quote-unquote good guy. Harley Quinn has this line at the end where she says, why would, we care about saving the world, if the world hates us? And I'm like, yeah, like, that question is not answered by, the fucking Croc guy, Captain Boomerang, or even Harley herself, really. I know she, like I said, she likes Deadshot, but yeah, she's got no reason to prove herself, because that's what it says on Wikipedia. I went and checked. It's like, you know what, I'm gonna get it up because it's so stupid how again it's such a contrived reason. So okay, so El Diablo reveals his powers and his criminal lifestyle, blah blah blah. Flag relieves the squad of their mission, but realizing they have the opportunity to prove themselves, the group sets out to save the city. Why would Deadshot, that makes sense. He wants to prove himself because of his daughter. Why would the rest of them want to prove themselves?
Peer pressure.
Tell me, Michael,
Peer
why?
pressure, Luke. There we go.
Peer pressure.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to talk about the fact that they're in a group. This could be a reason, like, okay, well, they're not motivated, but, they're in a group, so they go along with each other. They have this camaraderie, so they stick with each other. But the thing is, they aren't a group. I know Diablo says, I lost one family, I ain't going to lose another one, which is another great line of dialogue. And I also, firstly, you didn't lose that family, you killed them. So a bit of a difference there. And, secondly, again, they've been together for a day. Like, they try to force it so hard, like they like each other, and there's this group that they're close-knit, but yeah, just none of that effort is put in, and even with the time constraints, they have them together one day, it wouldn't make sense. So you can, I know you kind of said it flippantly, Michael, the peer pressure thing, but you can cross that out. That doesn't make sense either. So what's your only option that you're left with, Michael? It doesn't make any sense.
I think there's another thing which needs to be pointed out, which is that these people, within like the context of superhero films, aren't really supervillains. I mean, maybe they sort of, or they're not really villains, because like when you look at their shtick, well, some of them, like a lot of them, literally, like for example, Diablo significantly isn't a villain. Like, Diablo is somebody who has a power which he basically couldn't control, and then killed his wife and children, and then has resolved to literally never use his powers again because he understands how destructive they are. That's not a villain. That's somebody who was in the past, you know, like, obviously he was a gangster who was engaged in violence. So in the past he was a gangster engaged in violence and has now basically already been reformed. Killer Croc, I mean, I don't know, like, maybe he's a villain, they didn't really establish that. Will Smith is somebody who is mostly just motivated by money, which, like, you compare him to somebody like the actual villains in superhero films. He's not somebody who enjoys killing people. He's not somebody who, like, actually revels in being a bad person. And then you got Harley Quinn, who just, like, only does it because she loves the Joker and doesn't really seem to actually, you know, like I say again, have any investment in her own identity as a villain. So my kind of thoughts are that, in a way, these characters, they can just become heroes. Well, the ones that are actually characterized at all, because they're never really characterized in a meaningful sense as villains, and certainly some of them, like Diablo. Exact opposite.
I kind of disagree. Because they're not full-on villains, but they are selfish.
Yeah. So they're not heroes.
So that's the thing. Like, but they don't want to be heroes. At least you know, Will Smith, like, he wants to prove he's a good guy, but like,
I mean, yeah.
Again, I just come back to fucking Captain Boomerang. He just he's the guy who's a thief. Like, he's very shady. Why would he come back, man? Why? To prove
honestly,
himself?
like, I mean, the only explanation I can think of is just like, there's got to be a part of them that's just like, they like to do exciting stuff, so they're just like, might as well. Like, that would be, like, if I were to think, like, actually, why might they do it? It would just be like, well, you know, they like destroying things, they like killing things, they like violence, so... That's
a good thing to say about Harley Quinn.
But I think, like, even, I don't know, yeah.
That I could see that explanation for her, but Diablo, for instance, like, he I don't know if he wants to redeem himself. Like, he doesn't make that clear. You know, he's just sad about killing his family. You know, and again, he said he wasn't a weapon. I don't know, like, how this would redeem himself. Like, he still killed his family, you know. But so sorry, Diablo. He's again. You could, the movie's trying to make it so, well, no, this is a family as well. They're together, complete. And
I mean, I do agree. The scene is. I mean, the funny thing about the scene, it was very obvious to me that they were trying, and I actually took note of the scene myself, because it is like they do try to, I guess, characterize and have the, like, basically, I guess, have a character arc. I guess one of the problems is, and this is pretty much the issue of what you're touching on, they're trying to have a character arc for a group of characters, so they almost, in doing so, have to kind of turn those, I can't think what the word I'm looking for is, basically gloss over all of the differences between the characters.
Yeah, but they're all individuals with different backstories, different motivations, different, you know, and again, the only one that makes sense is Will Smith. The only one that makes, I mean, you could say Harley kind of makes sense, but the only one which I'm fully on board with is Will Smith. Anyway, so of course because they're all in on this again, because they all want to prove they're the good guys. They go and into the fucking, what is it, like a train station, I think, anyway, and they meet Cara Delevingne, the Enchantress, and I think it's time we talked about her. So she's doing a British accent when they talk to her, which I think was weird, because of course it's a Peruvian god, and of course Cara Delevingne isn't British, so of course she's evil. Yeah. She has to have a British accent. Just great stuff. And of course she wants to destroy the world, Michael, doesn't she? She wants to destroy the world. You know, she has a massive big blue sky beam, and you know she wants to say, well, the world's changing. Join my side, etc., etc. And the heroes are like, nuh-uh. Will Smith goes, "You are evil, lady." Yeah, I think he says something like that. So you know she's evil. It's just a pointless line, but you know, you get Will Smith to say those kind of things. That's what he does well. And yeah, they have to beat her brother first. You know, he's like the warm up before the final boss. Of course, R.I.P. Diablo as well. He loses another family. This time he's the one that dies. And you know, Cara Delevingne is, you know, destroying, you know, U.S. Navy battleships and secret bases. I don't know why she's the villain if she's doing that. IMO. But anyway, you know, this fucking, she's like a demigod basically, and she engages in some karate before just going, she loses for a bit, and then she just goes, right, enough, and then she just takes all their weapons down, and it's just like, why did she mess around with them, man? Like, why did they have to do this fucking pointless shit where the villain engages in karate, and then she gets punched and she's like, nah, fuck this, I'm winning, and she flicks her fingers and all that shit comes off. It's just every single little aspect of the scene is just so fucking terrible, Michael. Terrible. Tell me.
I do agree, and it's just like, I mean, it needs to be pointed out, because it's easy to forget amongst everything else, that this is just a really boring villain. Like, it's hard to explain how little, like, you want this villain to be defeated. Like, there is no investment in having this villain to be defeated. There's no understanding of this villain. Like, there's not... I mean, obviously, like, kind of having, like, a kind of lore-drenched backstory. Like, I'm thinking about Steppenwolf from the Justice League films, where it's, like, sets up the entire backstory. Obviously, that's not great, but at least it's something. In this case, it's kind of just like... I mean...
It's
literally, villain. Like, it's just, she's a Peruvian god. What does that mean? Like, what's her motivation? She just wants to destroy things because she's an agent of chaos, but not in an interesting
evil.
way. Yeah, exactly. She's just like, I just want to destroy things. And it's like, and people say she's evil, and it's like, well, I mean, sure, I guess she is, but like, not in an interesting way.
Even Cara Delevingne, like waving her hips about, doing whatever the fuck she was doing, can't save this villain, unfortunately. And of course, how does she meet her end? Harley Quinn tricks her in the most dumb way.
Yes.
Of course, the katana is right there on the floor, and she doesn't, and this fucking all-powerful god doesn't see it. So stupid. And then, she's... I like how she says the flag, "You don't have the balls," when he threatens to destroy her heart.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find that funny.
Yeah, because it's like, he doesn't even lose anything from doing it. So it's like, what do you mean I don't?
Well, no, he thinks he loses the chance of getting his wife back. Yeah, but... Of course, that happens anyway, because of fucking course it does. But yeah, I just like this villain, just who's like, speaks in very villainy language. He's an ancient god saying, "You don't have the balls." That's I like that.
How do they? Anyway. That's what I know. Like, how do these ancient primordial beings pick up the modern lingo?
Yeah, modern slang. Yeah. Anyway, so Waller then survives, and Deadshot says, "How are you not dead?" And I'm like, because there's going to be sequels, pal. Don't you know this? Come on.
Yeah.
That's why. And then, of course, the Joker rescues Harley Quinn at the end, which we'll get onto when we talk about the Joker more. But yeah, overall, I think, of course, we've been through this movie. It's just, the plot's just really shit. Everything about it is really shit. And also the tone, which we haven't really mentioned. Like, there is the scene at the end where they're seeing their futures, or what they hope life would be like, and... Of course, you have Harley Quinn with the Joker, in a nice family, suburban household.
Yeah.
And you have, all of them have these little, nice dreams. And that tone is very different to, like, we're the bad guys. Let's fuck shit up. The tone contrast is real throughout the movie. I was like, well, they haven't really explored these characters that much. And I get that's what David Ayer wanted to do. Because apparently his movie was quite long. And it was a deep exploration of these characters, like Harley Quinn. There were some scenes with Harley Quinn and the Joker which were cut out, which showed the Joker kind of abusing her.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, that scene would have... It was like what you actually want compared to what you should want, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe they were going to go down that path. But, of course, just tagging this like dream sequence in at the end doesn't have the payoff, because you didn't really set that like theme up throughout the movie with these characters. And yeah, it just... You have that scene... And you have, the other scenes, which is just like fun stuff, where they're being stupid villains and, messing stuff up. And it's like, it does feel like stitched together, especially with the music as well, because at the start you have like, a lot of pop songs. And then in the middle of the movie you have like no pop songs. And then right at the end you have another pop song. I can't, what was it? It was all that Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody right at the end. Yeah, it's like, again, the tone throughout the movie is just... quite up and down. It is like it is quite stitched together, and so therefore it makes sense that this was a mashup of what David Ayer wanted and what this trailer production studio created for Warner Brothers. Would you say, Michael?
No, yeah, definitely. I think it's like, tonally, I mean, like, you'd think kind of like with the whole Deadpool thing that this film would want to be kind of funny, which I think that's sort of what happened, basically, which is, so yeah, I mean, I think you kind of touched on it with the fact that David Ayer wanted to make something which is a bit more serious. And then I think it was a combination of the trailer came out and was very silly, and then that was probably influenced in turn by the fact that Deadpool was a big success, which was about an anti-hero.
I think also Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, and Guardians of the Galaxy too. So yeah, basically you had like this idea of let's do that, but obviously you can't just Frankenstein a new tone out of a film which wasn't built for it. And I think that's, you very much kind of get that impression with like the way, I mean, obviously, and a lot of the kind of silliness of the film, especially, like, for example, the title cards, I mean, that's a total kind of post-production thing, and obviously it would make sense. You'd imagine that David Ayer probably filmed specific, scenes for, like, setting up the different characters in a slightly more cinematic way. I don't know if that's the right term, but basically, like, more properly introducing the characters. So obviously they kind of had to just jumble everything together to make it more fast-paced, more fun. And yeah, definitely the end result of that song, which is very tonally dissonant.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they were caught in... Yeah, because I don't think the David Ayer one would have been particularly good. You would have had a better understanding of the characters, which would have been great, but I think the plot still would have been flawed. And then you contrast that with what I thought, like you call the movie The Suicide Squad, you have Harley Quinn in it. It did seem like it was going to be like kind of funny, it's going to have a light tone, like how the trailer portrayed. So yeah, that contrast is real, and yeah, you have to really pick a lane. It doesn't work if you keep on. You can't have both, unfortunately. And yeah, that's what created this mess of a movie. But anyway, so let's talk about the characters now, Michael. Because of course we haven't really talked about them much because yeah, there's a whole lot of plot to go through. But first up, Will Smith, best character in the movie, best acting I think in the movie.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know why he doesn't kill Harley Quinn because they didn't really have an affinity. I mean, they do, but it's not set up properly. IMO, so I don't really get that. But you know, not the worst thing ever. And yeah, the only character who you really get to who the movie actually spends time on, or a justified amount of time, it feels.
Yeah.
You know, and therefore the only character who is good. Like he has that scene with the daughter, and at his end, it's like, okay, that's a nice end to his journey.
That's not true. She's lying to you.
Yeah. Okay. It does feel like, yeah, like if this movie treated all those characters like they treated fucking Will Smith.
Yeah,
I think the movie would be better, but of course it wouldn't be incredible, but at least be better. But at least, yeah, he got a good innings out of this movie, I'd say.
No, yeah, definitely. I think that he was interesting, and I think that's the thing. It was kind of like, in a way, like basic most of the time is good, especially for like, you know, if you want like a film to be a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10, which isn't a bad score, you know, like I'd say that's relatively standard for a superhero film. You know, like it would only be an exceptional superhero film that would get into the really high ratings. So if you just have like that standard level of characterization that we got with Will Smith, that would have been enough. And obviously, unfortunately, he was the only character who got even that standard basic level of characterization.
Yeah, absolutely. Harley Quinn makes no sense as a character, I will say, considering. Look, overall, I don't know why she falls in love with Joker.
Yeah.
Considering she's meant to be this, you know, doctor, like what's she called, Harleen Quinzel. What a great name. Yeah, and she's meant to be like a psychiatrist who's literally her whole fucking job is to deal with these people.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And
actually,
she falls in love with Jared Leto, and God, makes no fucking sense that. But anyway, she why did she develop? Oh, here's the thing. I put out at the beginning when I was watching this for the first time. How has she developed these super abilities to kill people? And then you watch throughout the movie and it's like, oh, she doesn't have those super abilities. She's just a normal girl who's good at like acrobatics and has got a baseball bat.
Yeah.
You know. And also, I have to say, she's quite annoying throughout this movie. Like the way she goes pudding, like that. Pudding.
Yeah. I think she's supposed to like... Okay, so... interesting fact about Harley Quinn. I think I'm right in saying this. I'm not an expert on Batman, but I have seen the 1995 Batman animated series. And I think I'm right in saying that Harley Quinn was invented for the 1995 Batman animated series. So that's like her introduction to Batman lore. They were like, what are we going to do with the Joker? Let's give him the psychic. So I think, it's interesting to consider the fact, therefore, she was literally put into a, you know, animated version of Batman for children. But also in that show, like the joke, I guess, is that like she's almost the comedic foil to the Joker in that she's so annoying that the Joker kind of hates her. But obviously, you know, they don't do anything kind of like abusive with it or anything like that. But like that was
they were initially going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So again, this David Ayer getting more into, these characters initially, like, well, I think, I mentioned it before, didn't I? Yeah, they were initially going to go down this abusive path. But yeah, it's funny you say like she's so annoying and the Joker hates her.
Yeah.
So the old ball and chain, hey Joker.
Well, yeah, I think that was literally like the joke basically that, you know.
Yeah.
Also, he calls her just. Okay, so I might be confused. Does Harley Quinn ever call Joker Mr. J in this film? Because she does it a lot in the animated. She's like, "You're damn right, Mr. J," and he's like, "Yes, Harley."
I don't think so.
And yeah, also it's really funny. I don't know. It's always really funny to me that Mark Hamill voices the Joker in like the animated films.
Okay. I will say, the thing is, like I said, Harley Quinn is annoying. But again, you gave some more character development. Maybe she's not. But this is the key thing. She should not be in this fucking movie because she's not a supervillain. Because she's a fucking 5'2" girl. I mean, I don't know how small she is, but she's like, let's be generous, 5'5" girl with a baseball bat. She's not gonna take down the next Superman, is she? Let's be honest.
It's
and that's
really
why
weird.
I say overall she makes no sense as a character. Just no sense. I'm sorry, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
She shouldn't be in this.
my genuine take, I mean, like, just to kind of add a big thing out of nowhere, but basically, I think, honestly, if they wanted to have Harley Quinn in this movie, they should have done the Suicide Squad with, maybe another villain to replace Harley Quinn, taking on, like, with the Joker as a substantial antagonist, and Harley Quinn as the...
What, change his sides?
Well, no, I was going to say, well, maybe change his sides, but, I mean, I think you'd still run out with the... yeah, she could change sides, actually. Yeah, basically, I was going to say, so Harley Quinn would have to be friends with, like, the Joker's sidekick, and that's your introduction to Harley Quinn. And then maybe, for example, you could have a thing where if she does change sides, then it would justify why she's in there because she knows the Joker. Like, if the Joker was a villain, I guess what I'm saying is if the Joker was a villain, that would justify why Harley Quinn would be a member of the Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
But then you'd also have a lot of legwork in terms of character to show how she would be willing to turn around and betray the Joker. Because obviously, if the whole shtick is supposed to be that she's sycophantic towards the Joker because of, like, mental abuse, which obviously in this film is kind of just implied as well, sort of.
Well, that could be her character.
Exactly,
arc,
yeah.
She, and of course she'd have to deal with it in a sensitive way.
Yeah.
But maybe that would be too much for people like DC. But anyway, so yeah, that's Harley Quinn. I'm sorry, just no fucking sense her being in this movie in the role she's in. She's not a metahuman. Unfortunately. So Diablo, he is a metahuman actually.
Yes.
He is someone who you could say, okay, yeah, put this guy.
Well, he's like the best one of like the whole. I mean, maybe I'm just saying that too enthusiastically, but I feel like being able to shoot fire at people, like there's literally, I mean, like the whole thing is like literally one of the tensions early on in the film is that because he's not willing to use his superpower, it means that like they're not really, they're on the back foot, and as soon as he does, it's like okay, they just destroyed everything.
But he is an interesting character because he doesn't want to be used as a weapon.
Yes,
and that's something. Then Will Smith taps him on the head several times, and then he kills all of the enemies, and he is a weapon. So
yes. Great
there.
character development.
You took a very interesting. Okay, and there could be something here, and then already. Oh, no, he's just totally gone against what he said just because Will Smith got him angry, and he proved himself by becoming a weapon, I guess, because like I said on Wikipedia, the team sets out to prove themselves by defeating the Enchantress, and he does that by becoming a weapon, even though he said he doesn't want to do that anymore. But, whatever. Who the fuck cares?
Also, I kind of agree with you. You know how he said that he died? Well, that he dies at the end. I think it's one of those classic things where because he killed his wife and kids, like, he can't really be redeemed, so he has to die. Like, I think, I remember, not that anyone cares about Star Wars anymore, but I remember, like, lots of people kind of arguing that, like, Kylo Ren would, like, have to be, like, way before Episode 9 came out, he would have to be redeemed and die. Because you can't just have him. Oh, actually, the other example is, I'm thinking of Darth Vader. Basically, because Anakin had already killed so many people and done so much evil, he couldn't just, like, be redeemed and then live out the rest of his life as, like, a happy guy. He had to be redeemed and then die. And I think it's kind of the same thing here.
Yeah. The Croc guy, now, Michael.
Yes.
Let's talk about him. Fucking, again, just forgettable. Very, he's like, he's a fucking crocodile. He has no use in this movie. I'm
Doesn't
sorry,
he swim under the water one time, Luke? Let's be fair.
Yeah.
Don't forget that.
No, yeah, unless his skin is impenetrable because of bullets.
Well, yeah, they should, because that's like the thing with Aquaman, isn't it? Like Aquaman's skin is impenetrable because of like the ocean pressure. I think they said.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, again, if evil Superman comes along, Croc guy, I don't think it's going to stand much of a chance. And of course, the same for Boomerang, Captain Boomerang. He can throw his boomerang at Superman. Don't think it's going to make a difference. Again, similar problem to Harley Quinn. See, I'm not just being sexist by saying the girl can't do it.
No, yeah.
Although I will say that again, she is quite small in stature, so I think she stands out more than any other.
I will point out though, because of my memory, when we did the Avengers, you were basically like, why the hell is Black Widow in this group? She's just a girl who can do acrobatics and fight people.
I mean, yeah, but it's accurate. It's just that I guess comic book characters who have been created with superpowers or the best powers have often been male.
Yeah. And
the female ones are the ones that can flip around and do cool tricks because they're acrobatic.
Yeah, but it's like that. That doesn't cut the mustard. Is that a term?
Doesn't cut the mustard against Thanos. Yes. Black Widow just jumping around and Thanos just smacks her, just and breaks every bone in her body.
Yeah, but she was pretty good when she had to kill herself, wasn't she?
Oh yeah, that was.
So she was the real Suicide Squad.
Yeah. That was her use of how female superheroes are used in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They kill themselves. That's how they help defeat the bad guys. Apart from Captain Marvel, of course, who kind of ruins this theory. But she's got the opposite problem. She was too powerful. But anyway, so let's get on to the Joker now, Michael.
Yeah, Joker,
because we haven't talked about him much because he again doesn't really feature in the plot. And even here's the thing: even though he doesn't really feature in the plot, that makes it all the more impressive just how annoying Jared Leto is. because I can't imagine this guy commanding the respect of the criminal underworld, and he's in control of a bunch of things and he's orchestrating everything. He just looks like an absolute twat. I don't know how anyone could respect him at all. God, when he does that growling thing,
yes,
and the honka, it's just like, fucking hell, man. This guy's a clown, Michael.
Yeah,
an absolute clown, but not in like a funny way, like, oh, he's a clown, but he's just like a clown. He's just a fucking twat, like running around doing stupid shit. I'm sorry. This Jared Leto, awful performance. And I don't think he did a good job. And I think, judging by the fact that he didn't get a solo movie after this, people agree with me.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, it's an interesting thing, because obviously Jared Leto is a generally acclaimed actor, who's also very selective with his scripts. He's only been on, like, a couple of films. Like, he's not like one of those guys just always in films. He's, like, very selective. And he decided on this film. I think it's, like, I mentioned this before, like, how retroactively cringy it is that he got so into the character. Like, he went full on, like, method with the character, and then he was in the film for like 15 minutes, like not even like 10 minutes, and you think like, oh, how, because I mean, I guess you probably know about all this, like, did he send like a used condom to somebody? Because I feel like I remember hearing that, and it's like, I hope it wasn't a used condom. I hope it was just...
He did. He said, there's this interview where the interviewer says, hey, did you send used condoms to people? And he said, yeah, I sent them to everybody. And that's what just makes it so hilarious, so pathetic, like, that he did all this shit, and he was in the movie for like 15 minutes, and he was incredibly shit, and he was so shit that he isn't even going to get a solo movie after this.
I mean, like, yeah, like...
It's just that an all-around, the most pathetic thing you've ever seen in your life concerning a major character in a movie like Jared Leto. Just unimaginably embarrassing for him.
I mean, I will say, like, I don't know if I'm as down on the character himself as you are, but I'm still not pro the Joker. I'm just thinking, I think, like, he could have been substantially less terrible if I basically, I'm saying he wasn't helped
by a different actor.
No, I'm saying he wasn't helped. I do actually think, like, Jared Leto was okay. I think there were a few things...
he was not. You know what, Michael? I've got this ready. I'm going to play the scene, and this will convince you otherwise.
Okay, I'm ready.
Here we go.
Listen, you are my guests to this handsome hunka. You belong to him now.
This handsome hunka.
I mean, I don't know, like, he's...
No, you do know. Get him off any project to do with as is what happened, which we'll get into in a bit, and send him to jail for that.
Although we should also point out, you mentioned this already, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker also would probably not have commanded anybody's respect. So really, our two most recent Jokers...
No, but that's different because...
Yeah, no, like, he fulfills
that's a different interpretation.
Yeah, I know,
Joaquin Phoenix isn't actually doing that in his movie.
Yeah, I know, yeah. I'm just saying, like, basically...
So that's the difference.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if anything, it's true to say that we've not had an intimidating Joker since Heath Ledger, who, of course, ironically did join the Suicide Squad.
Some would say even since Cesar Romero. Some would say... One more time.
Yeah, well, I mean, Cesar Romero...
Sorry, no, Michael, one more time, just... Sorry.
Guests to this handsome hunka.
But here's the thing, I think what they should have done is they should have had Jared Leto do some Cesar Romero style hijinks. Like, they should have had what they should have had is Jared Leto should have made a vending machine that spat out money for the kids, so that they decided that it was no longer worth studying at school to get a good job because they could just get money from the vending machine.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Which is my favourite Joker plot of all time.
Fucking hell. Anyway, so just a little tidbit. The third act was change, with the Joker originally having an influence within it, with the majority of Leto's scenes being omitted from the theatrical cut, which upset Leto. So yeah, I guess he sent those people, those used condoms for nothing, I guess. Yeah, wasn't worth it in the end. One last character I want to touch on, which is the prison guy, Griggs.
Oh, yes.
The evil prison guy, because of course he is in the beginning of this movie. We spent time with him.
I bet he's going to get his comeuppance.
Harley says, "Oh, you're screwed," and then he doesn't return. He's never in the movie again. And again, that's the difference between, I think, the theatrical cut and what David Ayer was going for. I don't imagine he would have written things that poorly, and it's just really shit, and it doesn't work. And again, adds to the fact that this movie is bad. That this character, who was like an important character, or semi-important, just is not in the rest of the movie, and he doesn't die. I was really expecting a scene where, when Joker realizes Harley isn't in the prison anymore, he kills him, but we don't get that. Anyway, Michael, I just want to talk about the punk aesthetic, basically.
Oh, hot topic.
yeah, because it is like Hot Topic the movie, but the thing which is quite funny about what they're going for, you know, 'cause with the style, and I guess I'll just say the aesthetic of this movie is the plot goes exactly how you would expect from the perspective of the villains. You know, teaming up, then becoming the good guys. The Suicide Squad, I mean, when I refer to the villains.
Yeah, sorry.
The actual things that they make the characters do are, you know, so lazy and boring, the actual plot as well. The ending and the villain, again, is so predictable with the blue sky beam, and the villain who talks like a typical villain that Thor Ragnarok made fun of a year later, I believe, you know, in that movie. And yeah, Aya had 6 weeks to write the screenplay, and it shows. Like I said, but it's just hilarious that they were going for, oh yeah, no, these the worst heroes ever. Oh, this is going to be such a crazy movie from the trailer.
Yeah.
Oh, look at these weird songs. Oh, look at Harley Quinn, isn't she a fucking mental bitch? Oh, this is so weird. And it's like, oh no, the plot follows exactly what you would, well, just an incredibly lazy formula. And yeah, the villain is incredibly generic as well. Everything's generic, it's not different. Even though it markets itself as incredibly different and weird, and you know, what's the phrase, Michael?
Zany, not like other girls.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Like how Hot Topic is. It's like, oh yeah, you're different if you go to Hot Topic. Not mainstream. What is the word for not mainstream? Yeah, maybe not hipster. Something like that. I'll try and figure
edgy.
it out. But yeah, edgy. That's a good word. Yeah, it's like edgy. It's not though edgy. It's incredibly.
This isn't your
incredibly
grandma's Suicide Squad.
Yeah. So yeah, what do you think of that?
No, yeah, I mean, basically, like, this film, well, I mean, that gets to the fact that, like, this film does have I guess, a market with, weird, like, okay, so are you familiar with, like, the subculture of being seen? Like, SCENE?
No.
It's basically,
I don't want to.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you don't have to, but, it's kind of like, it's a derivative of emo, but it's kind of like a happier, more neon kind of version of emo. And, I think a lot of those people really love this film. I think like a lot of kind of, well, I guess let's just say goths in general, just to use our broader terms. Like a lot of people saying like there were like lots of goth boyfriends and girlfriends characterizing themselves being like, yeah, we're like the Joker and Harley Quinn, you know, like we're messed up, but you know we love each other and things like that. So I feel like that was definitely it really did well with that demographic.
Cringiest shit ever. The people who I would just hate to hate to associate.
But
with.
Yeah, I think
hate to live with one of those people for at least a year and a bit.
Yes.
You know, if that were to ever happen, that would be really annoying, especially if they had a bike. It would just be the worst fucking thing ever.
I hate it too. But like, basically, I mean, like that's the thing. Like, I feel like this film, it definitely would do well with teenagers because teenagers have no conception of quality.
Well, again, that's why it grossed fucking 700 million. Yeah. All those fucking weirdos liked it.
Yeah.
Even though they shouldn't have. And like most things that they're sold in a hyper consumerized world, they think they're being cool and edgy, but no, they're just conforming in a way which they
nothing edgier than consuming the product.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't a rebellious thing. The fact that you like a popular movie and you know, I dress up as fucking Harley Quinn and the Joker. Oh, great! You know, it's two incredibly one of them is a lot more famous than the other, but yeah, very famous comic book characters. And I watched Suicide Squad. I like Suicide Squad, even though it's incredibly formulaic and generic as we've been through. So yeah, Michael, just that whole shtick. It's a facade basically. Which is rather unsurprising. But yeah, let's finally just talk about the fallout to this movie, Michael, because it's incredibly interesting. So, this was the movie, of course, that made DC fans try and take down Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes.
Because a lot of DC fans were desperate, you know, for this movie. You know, Batman v Superman wasn't as good as the Marvel movies. They wanted it to be. And then, you know, then they realised Suicide Squad isn't as good. And then they lash out at the critics who call it out for what these movies were, which was really shit. And yeah, so there you go. This, again, is incredibly embarrassing for those DC fans, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also very funny in hindsight because it's like, now the DC Expanded Universe like is doing, I mean, it's doing okay. Like, they've had like some films which have done well with the critics. I mean, even the Birds of Prey movie didn't do terribly with the critics. So, like, they've done okay. And I guess, like, now, in hindsight, the DC people either must believe that they were wrong initially and like basically it turns out those first 3 films or whatever were just bad and that's why like some of the films have been reviewed well, some of the films have been reviewed badly because of the quality, or they I guess have concluded that actually they finally were able to get through to the critics and that's why Wonder Woman and some of the other films were reviewed better.
Yeah, But that's the thing. I think Wonder Woman was, but obviously Justice League wasn't. I think the DCEU might actually be on life support
it's
now
really interesting because basically what they've done is it's almost like I'm thinking of like staggering, like that's the word I'd use to describe. And I don't mean like staggering in terms of like it's staggering. I mean like staggering, like walking with like one leg. Like that's how I feel about like this kind of like because it's almost like every other foot is like a bad.
Well, the problem is that they've got a Joker movie that came out with Joaquin Phoenix, and they've got the Batman, which is with Robert Pattinson, which isn't involved in this. So in this universe. So what the fuck is going on?
It's no longer really the DCEU because it's not an expanded universe. It's just a series of films, some of which are related, some of which aren't.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy how, and that's the thing with Marvel. You could say, "Oh, Black Widow was shit," but at least you know what direction they're going. They got a lot of things planned out with Disney Plus. DCEU, they're just a fucking mess compared to it. But anyway, so let's get more into this. So of course, many Warner Brothers executives resigned, I believe, after this movie because it was so bad. And obviously the failures of Batman v Superman compounded it. Yeah, and it really did seem like the DCEU was in a death spiral, and Wonder Woman kind of saved it, but not really, because of course Justice League didn't do too well the next year. And basically there was meant to be an untitled Joker film. In June 2018, Variety reported Leto would reprise his role as Joker for his own solo movie. However, by February 2019, the film had been cancelled and the standalone film Joker was released that year, which of course was a massive success. Joaquin Phoenix won Best Actor, nominated for Best Picture. Again, just absolutely humiliating for Jared Leto that his movie was cancelled because they picked another Joker and he was so much better than him. Also, there was an untitled Harley Quinn and Joker film, and that was announced, but in October 2018, the script, even though it was completed, by February 2019, again, that film had been cancelled. So that's interesting. So in February 2019, clearly, I don't know what happened. Warner Bros. Was just like, nah, fuck off, Jared Leto. You're not being the Joker anymore. His whole Joker thing was comprised of like 15 minutes in this movie and like 5 minutes in Zack Snyder's Justice League cut. And speaking of the Zack Snyder's Justice League cut, following the announcement of Zack Snyder's Justice League in May 2020, due to #Release the Snyder Cut, fans commenced a new campaign under the name Release the Ayer Cut, which director and writer David Ayer supported. He requested assistance in bringing his own vision to HBO Max. The Snyder Cut was released in 2021. In March 2021, and Sarnoff, the current chairman and CEO of Warner Brothers, said that the company had no intention to release Ayer's cut of the film. Her comment led Ayer reaching out to Entertainment Weekly to explain why his film didn't release in the way he wanted. In 2016, quote, "It just scared the shit out of the executives. They just weren't ready for what I was doing, man. They just weren't ready."
Oh, wow.
I'm sure it was going to be...
That sounds like M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, exactly. To keep fan interest in his vision of the film alive, despite Sarnoff's comments, fans have continued to campaign for the cut, with it trending on Twitter on March the 22nd, 2021, and again on April the 16th. That is interesting. And yeah, of course we get like constant flashbacks to Harley Quinn and the Joker in this movie, and you suspect those would be longer scenes in the actual Ayer cut, and perhaps it would have been better. But yeah, like I said, the movie still would have been flawed. And again, this is the problem. Like, you give these fans an inch, HBO or Warner Brothers, and they take a mile. Like, okay, you want the Justice League cut? Okay, I can understand. You want the fucking another cut from Suicide Squad? Are you fucking mental? But yeah, I guess, I don't think the Justice League was much improved on, from what I heard. I haven't seen it because it's 4 hours long, and I'm not doing that. From the actual theatrical cut to the Zack Snyder cut, wasn't that much improved apparently. Maybe a bit here and there, but again, with 4 hours of film, you would expect that.
Yeah,
it just adds more context. And yeah, I think a similar thing with the Ayer cut, perhaps, Michael. And of course, the Snyder cut only happened because HBO Max Warner Brothers wanted people to go to HBO Max because, of course, they boosted that because of the pandemic. They're releasing every movie on HBO Max, I believe, like a week after its theatrical release. So yeah, that's the only reason that got done. It wasn't because the HBO or Warner Brothers were like, yeah, you know what, let's give Zack Snyder his cut that he likes. It was a direct response to the pandemic and HBO trying to prioritize, or Warner Brothers trying to prioritize HBO Max. But yeah, that's it. Anything else to say, Michael?
No, thank you for the history lesson.
Yeah, very interesting. I think it's safe to say we will not get the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad anytime soon, especially since there's the Suicide Squad is of course releasing this week and in the United States, and they've already moved on from from the previous Suicide Squad. So Michael, time to conclude. You go first.
Yes. So basically, I already said that I think this film is really incompetent, and I think we've explained how this film is really incompetent. Just the editing and in terms of both the plot construction and also just some of the ways that the shots and the visual style. Like, I mean, I could literally just list every single aspect of this movie, including even just like the specific characters, if I wanted to go into how the incompetence of this film is on display. But I think the main thing is just that the completely lackluster plot, which has no real kind of lore to it, no kind of world building to it, nothing to really get invested in, and no real sense of stakes, because ultimately at the center of it is this massive contradiction about like how the main villain is a product of, it kind of reminds me of Homer Simpson's alcohol, the cause to and solution to all of life's problems. And it's like, yeah, that's basically the Suicide Squad. And yet, despite all of that, I will say that I found the film just like, I'm not going to give the film a 1, which I feel like I'm probably right in saying you are. I'm going to say that for whatever reason, I just thought there was like enough there that I'm going to give the film a low 2. So I feel like, yeah, I'm basically explaining why I'm being generous and giving this film a low 2. But no, I mean, genuinely, like, watching this film, like, I don't think I hated it as much as you. Like, I was like, this film is not good, but I was able to watch it and only get incredibly bored about 2/3 of the way through, which is, considering how terrible this film is, it was quite impressive that they're able to keep my attention for that long. Okay. So yeah, whatever, I'm saying low 2.
Well, I guess I've got low standards because I'm giving it a 2 as well, even though you say I hated it more. That's the thing, I think it has to be like offensively bad to be worse.
Yeah.
And it was not offensively, like, it was really shit. It was really, really shit. Like, every aspect, almost every aspect, I should say. Because, like I said, there were some decent bits, and particularly Will Smith. But, yeah, it wasn't offensively bad. Like, I just came out of this movie after watching it, like, sighing it, oh, what the fuck was that shit? Instead of just being, like, angry or annoyed at what I saw. So that's why the minimum it can get is a 2.
Yeah.
But it's getting a 2. And yeah, of course, it's got so many problems. The plot doesn't make sense. So many things don't make sense. The introduction is one of the worst I've ever seen from a movie. And yeah, it's lucky it just doesn't have any. Well, it's so lucky that it doesn't get a lower rating than me, of course, because that matters a lot 5 years later. But yeah, it's just lucky it doesn't have anything offensive that I just fucking despise, like on a visceral level, because otherwise it would get worse. And yeah, just really, really shit. So, Michael, we're going to go through some receipts now.
Oh, yes.
Jungle Cruise. We predicted what that was going to get on Rotten Tomatoes because, of course, we did Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark last week. So, of course, there's a big connection there. I think, isn't Raiders of the Lost Ark a Disney product? So,
yes.
So, yeah, and Jungle Cruise is based off a ride off Disney. So, yeah, I guess there's some connection there. You predicted it would get 61% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I predicted it would get 67%. And Jungle Cruise got 62% on Rotten Tomatoes. So very good guess from you, Michael. You were only 1 off.
Wow.
And I was 5 off. So you increase your lead by 4. You have 46. I have 74. Of course, lower is better. So the gap before was 24. Now the gap is 28. So now it's time to predict what we think the new DC EU movie is going to get. The Suicide Squad. What it is going to get on Rotten Tomatoes. Are you ready, Michael, for this guess?
Yes.
Okay, because I am. I can tell you that for sure. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
73.
91. You 73? I go for 91.
Oh, okay.
Do you know why I went for 91, Michael?
Because that's how well the Joker did. I don't know.
It's because it's been directed by James Gunn.
Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Who, of course, did Guardians of the Galaxy.
And Guardians of the Galaxy did well.
Guardians are very well reviewed. He'll know what to do with this. So I'm thinking 91 would be...
Yeah. I mean, my plan, I was thinking, like, higher. So I basically, 73. But yeah, 91, I think you could be, you could. I mean, I can't even bother to do the maths, but that could mean that, if it's over 91, that would mean that obviously you'd increase by, like, whatever the difference is, 22 or something, I don't know.
Yeah, the tipping point then is going to be Yeah, because I think I could have gone higher, but I'm like, I'll go a bit lower because I don't think you would go as high. The tipping point, if the gap is 18, would be 82. So either side of 82. So if it's higher than 82, I do better than you. If it's lower than 82, you do better than me.
All right.
So yeah, we'll look at that next week. And what are we reviewing next week, Michael?
We're reviewing the film Boys in the Hood.
Boys in the Hood, yes. It's 25-year anniversary. So we'll look forward to that. So anyway, thank you. We have been for listening. We've been selecting and reflecting on Suicide Squad, and yes, it made us all want to commit to not watching any more DCE movies for the remaining years. Yeah, again, 5 years old. I think many people have criticised it. Like we're kind of late to the party, I think, but I think it deserves to go through just how bad this actually was. It was a shocking mess. And join us next week for something that wasn't, which was Boys in the Hood. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.